Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Marketplace webinar, EdisonNet Marketplace webinar. We present today the Diamond model, which can help your initiative, your AWS City initiative, to improve and enhance your economic output and also other values, as we will have explained by Alice and by our colleague Alexandra. I'm Ina Sonner. I'm from the EdisonNet project from Humboldt University. We are coordinating this project, and I have some first slides on this project, EdisonNet. Yes, we want to present today. In the EdisonNet project, we have a co-creation strategy, which means that we have communities of practice and knowledge where we learn from each other in a horizontal way. The main mission is to mainstream edible city solutions. We see these solutions as a strategic step towards development of socially inclusive, sustainable, productive, biodiversity-friendly and healthy cities. We learned from many urban food initiatives worldwide that they are really effective in deepening the social dimension of nature-based solutions. Edible city solutions invite citizens to co-create the sustainable development of their society in their cities, to proactively change the urban environment to their own benefit, and to induce a paradigm shift also in their own lifestyle, which is really important. What are edible city solutions? We consider here a wide range of different forms of urban farming, urban production, distribution, and consumption of food. They are mostly linked to innovative principles of ecological design, closed material and energy flows, and they have, and it's about we talk today, economic benefits. They produce green jobs, saving resources, reducing health costs, for example. Yes, and what we aim in the project as well as to tackling fragility and self-exploitation that we observed in many initiatives worldwide. And this we do in a collective learning process. And we think that we can really learn from each other and provide comprehensive and co-developed knowledge based on this. We have contributions from theoretical context, but also from practical context. So in our philosophy in the project, we are all experts and can contribute. Today, the focus is on the edible city solution marketplace and on the business consulting that we offer. And yeah, the idea is to open eyes for sustainable business ideas. My last slide is an invitation to the network, of course, to the marketplace. You can find this in the link here at edisonnet.com. And you see already some of our cities here in this slide. So there is the possibility to really exchange in the network on local level, on regional level, but also on global level and across different sectors. So I would like to hand it over to Alexandra for the next presentation.
Yes, so before we dive into the Diamond model, we just want to give you a quick overview of what the EdisonNet Marketplace is, which is the context for today's webinar. So the Marketplace is basically an international digital platform that is aimed at edible city solution initiatives, as we call it, who are developing and creating different urban food solutions across the globe. And the goal that we have with the platform is to basically connect all these initiatives and enable their exchange of knowledge to basically ultimately replicate and upscale. And we do this on the one hand through offering free consultancy services, which is, you could say, at the core of the marketplace. We offer different workshops in person, but also digital. And we also have a focus on one-on-one consulting to answer your specific questions that you would want to direct at us. And we look at 3 core areas, basically, in this consulting. So we can provide you with information on how to develop your initiative, the different financial strategies to follow, how to plan and strategize your goals and improve your performance, and also basically how to communicate your initiative to the public most effectively and reach more people, more customers. We also look at a variety of topics. So whether it's building integrated agriculture you're looking at, or you want to learn more about water management in your initiative, or want to know more about how to engage the community and reach active participation, for example, from the local neighborhood. These are all topics we can cover because we have a very big expert network behind the consultancy services. Yeah. On the other hand, we also offer different resources on the platform. So the core would be, for example, the FAQ section, where you can find all the most frequently asked questions that we've collected so far. If you've signed up to a one-on-one consulting, you can use these resources to maybe read into the topic first. Here you can see we also have different playbooks and tools that you can use. And we also make available all the workshops and presentations we give on here. You will also have the opportunity to promote your services. So if you visit the platform, you will see there's an emerging database of different initiatives. And you can also filter the database according to different categories. Yeah, and basically showcase what you are doing. And just to give you an example of what your profile could look like in the database, here we have a Berlin-based NGO who basically have provided a description of their main activities, where they're based, and their contact details. And we will also ask you to include different media, photos, videos. So you will be able to, basically be contacted by other initiatives and also contact other initiatives. So signing up is very simple. You can follow the link, which we'll also put in the chat. You will see very prominently placed the registration link, which takes you to a survey to put in all the relevant information. And we're very much looking forward to welcoming you on the marketplace. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us by mail. And that being said, I'm gonna hand back over to Alice.
Hello, and thank you. Also welcome from my side. Today I would like to introduce you to the Diamond Model. The Diamond Model is a tool that can help you analyze your initiative and find strategies that support its continuity and growth. I'm currently a researcher at Wageningen University in the Business Management and Organization Chair Group. So what are we going to talk about today? First, I will show you how the Diamond Model came into being, its origin in research and practice. Then we will have a look at the model itself. Thereafter, I will show you with a few examples how it can be used for analysis and strategizing. And we will close with showing you some resources. And lastly, we will have about 20 to 30 minutes to ask questions and discuss them. So the origin, how did we come up with this model? Our task was to create an analysis and a typology of urban food initiatives' business models. And the goal was to close knowledge gaps in the effective implementation, continuity, and growth of urban food initiatives, what Ina also mentioned at the beginning. But this task came with a couple of challenges. First of all, urban food initiatives create a complex of values. So a community garden, for example, creates community and also ecological values like biodiversity or cooling down the microclimate with its plants, and also some financial value through selling seedlings, for example. So the question is like, how can this complexity of different values be considered and compared? And then second, urban food initiatives usually have a range of very different stakeholders. That is, actors that are impacting or impacted by the initiative, whether that is a human being, an animal, or plants, or physical entities like water or the air. So how can this diverse set of stakeholders be considered? That's also a good question. And then third, many initiatives do not identify as business in the conventional sense, that is, as commercial businesses. Yeah, so the question is like, if there are so many different organizational value logics, like so many different objectives, like social and ecological ones, how can we analyze the business models of an organization that does not identify as a business in the first place? And finally, and related to the third point, urban food initiatives have various organizational and legal forms, like NGOs or commercial forms, foundations, or mixed ones. So existing business model concepts cannot capture this complexity because they do not consider the complexity of values, the heterogeneous stakeholder groups at an equal level. They're more targeted to the commercial value logic and to a narrower set of stakeholders like customers and employees. So there was no systematic method for inquiry into business models, and that makes them, of course, difficult to compare. We had to find a solution, and it was an iterative process, going from business literature to working together in the gardens, interviewing, looking at how the initiatives themselves depicted their organizations. Here you see, for example, Ondergrond from Rotterdam, the circular one. And then we hold a lot of workshops also with practitioners that help us understand how a model could work that really depicts the reality of urban food initiatives, how they actually work. And I worked a lot with organizations from Rotterdam and also from Oslo and Berlin. And it was the goal to make the complex of values they create visible. And before I show you what I came up with all the practitioners and other researchers, I would like to ask you two questions. One is, which turning point or highlight was crucial for the continuity, growth, or replication of your initiative? This, of course, is if you are part of an urban food initiative. And the second question is, which specific stakeholder helped grow your initiative the most? You can go to menti.com and enter the green code here now or later, and we will talk about this in the discussion afterwards. I'm curious to hear that from you, and so go to menti.com and enter the green code. It's also in the chat. Now let's have a look at the diamond. It considers a complex of values created, it considers different stakeholders, and variegated value creation capture mechanisms, and the different organizational and legal forms. So how does it do that? In essence, every organization has a business model. A business model can be defined as the value creation and capture mechanism of an organization, because to survive, every organization creates and captures some values, whether this is financial value or social or ecological value. A community garden, for example, creates community, a social value, and captures community in the form of people who join. The garden also creates ecological value in the form of biodiversity, for example, or cooling down the microclimate. And it captures value in the form of seeds, for example, produced by plants, so the natural reproduction cycle is upheld. So you see, we can define value creation and capture quite broadly, talking about social and ecological values, and not only about financial value. Value is defined as the outcome of what is of value for whom, the stakeholder perceiving the value, and how this is of value. That is how the stakeholder understands that this is of value. In other words, the diamond model takes a stakeholder perspective on value. Who values what and how? In our community garden, Anne, the founder, perceives ecology as a value. How? She works in the garden. The municipality also sees the ecological value in the garden. The groundwater body under the garden is a non-human stakeholder, a physical entity, and we presume, based on our knowledge about water systems, that it is important for water to circulate freely to close local loops of evaporation and percolation. The municipality also sees that value because clearly closed water loops support the public sewage system. This is Laurie. Laurie is the influential wife of the mayor, and she perceives a negative value when passing by the garden. To her, it is a messy plot of weeds. So you see that values perceived can also be negative. Lastly, we have two non-human stakeholders, the bees and apple trees, and they perceive the value of food in the garden because the garden is their habitat. You see that we now have the sides of the diamond consisting of the values stakeholders perceive. Time to add the head of the diamond. The O-shaped head of the diamond stands for organization. Any organization consists of physical and social components. Physical components are, for instance, a garden shack, water infrastructure, gardening tools, phones, or trees. And social components are a team, knowledge, emotions, and social dynamics. So together, the social and the physical components, the organization, create a variety of values for its stakeholders. So how does value creation capture work? The diamond model uses the so-called value loop to do this. There are 7 elements that constitute the value loop. The organization with its social and physical components, the value created, the channels that bring the value to the stakeholders, that is the how in the value triangle, the stakeholders perceiving the value through those channels, the resources stakeholders give to the organization, and the resource translation mechanism at work. We will now follow the value loop to explore the full diamond model. We've already talked about the social and the physical components and the values to the stakeholders. Now we will look at channels, resources, and resource translation. So how a specific value reaches a stakeholder matters. It may be that a stakeholder understands a specific value only through a specific channel. We distinguish 6 channels here. First, direct involvement. Anne, the initiator of the garden, is directly involved and perceives the ecological value through her work in the garden. The second channel is visits on site for workshops or events or just passing by, like Laurie. And the third channel are off-site exhibitions of products and services from the organization, like flowers at farmers markets or a stand at a trade fair. And fourth, a stakeholder can learn about a value through a third party, like the municipality learned about it through the EdisonNet project, for example. Fifth, a value can be perceived by a stakeholder through a formal representation, like a website or a report. And the municipality, for example, requires this, a research report showing the number of plant species and its function for stormwater management. They would probably not be convinced if there was no numbers to support the ecological impact of the garden. Channel number 6 is an informal representation of a value, like a friend telling you about the beauty of this garden or a photo on their phone. It can also be a channel transporting a value to a stakeholder. Value is captured from stakeholders through the resources stakeholders give to the organization. Stakeholders literally hold a stake because they get something, value, from the organization, and they give something, that is resources, to the organization. The municipality, for example, gives funding for urban ecology, and the bees provide pollination services for plant production. And Anne gives her workforce. So each stakeholder gives different resources according to their capabilities. We distinguish 3 types of resources: direct, indirect, and subsidiary resources. Direct resources are social and physical, such as workforce, time, knowledge, or seeds, soil, in-kind donations, etc., in case of the physical resources. Indirect resources are used to acquire direct resources. They are of financial nature. Money, basically, or any other quantified proxy that can be exchanged for goods and services. And subsidiary resources can help access indirect and direct resources. So strategic alignment, having common goals, organizing in networks, and formal representations of what the organization does, like reports, websites, or conference presentations, and informal representations such as pictures, word of mouth, Google reviews, or likes. The resources stakeholders give can also not be useful for the organization. I need to jump back one more time. So Laurie, for example, talks negatively about it to her husband. And because he's the mayor, this could undermine the long-term existence of the community garden. So bear in mind that there can always be like a negative version of those resources as well, like fights or financial costs, soil erosion for physical resources, a bad reputation as an informal representation, and so on. So lastly, in the value loop, any resource given needs to be translated back into the organization if the organization wants to keep creating values, which we assume. So there are multiple ways of translating resources. In the end, any resource should be translated into a physical or a social component of the organization. Money, for example, can be used to pay salaries or buy seeds. A website can be used to attract volunteers, part of the social component. And becoming the talk of the town certainly helps attract visitors for the next garden workshop. So social and physical resources themselves can never be translated into one another because they're mutually dependent. So here we have the full diamond model at a glance. We see the yellow value loop, and we see the organization and its stakeholders. Now it's time to apply it. I will walk you through 4 steps. These 4 steps are the basic steps to take when applying the diamond model to your organization for analysis and strategizing. Step 1 is a snapshot of your organization. Here on the right is a table where you fill in the stakeholders, the values they see, the social and physical components of your organization, and the resources stakeholders give. This is then translated visually into a diamond. You essentially map the organization as it is at the moment. Step 2 is to do the same, but this time you have the future in mind, in the future vision for your organization for, let's say, in a year. We see that our community garden team decided that they want to change the value Laurie perceives from weeds to beauty by 2023. Let's see how they managed to do so. In step 3, we conduct so-called value loop analyses. Here you can see us in Rotterdam conducting a value loop analysis for a local initiative, for example. So this is how it works. We trace the loop for a particular value. Let's take the ecological value perceived by Anne and the municipality. The municipality perceives this value through research reports, that's the channel, and Anne through her work in the garden, that is direct involvement. The municipality gives funding, and Anne gives her workforce, that are the stakeholder resources. And both resources translate nicely into the social and the physical components to keep creating ecological value. The funding is used to maintain the physical components like plants and pay part of Anne's salary, and Anne's workforce is a direct resource contributing to the interaction of social and physical. So that value loop worked well. However, we could also find externalities in the value loop. Externalities are positive or negative values the organization creates without getting useful resources in return. For example, garden events in the evening produce too much noise for people living next to it. That is a negative externality. And a positive externality is that the garden provides mental health benefits, but so far few stakeholders benefiting from this give back any resources. We're also likely to find bricks or gaps in the value loop. They are in the way or interrupted. They can occur anywhere between each of the 7 components. I give you 3 examples for bricks and gaps. By the way, also, whether you call them bricks or gaps does not really matter. It's more an intuitive decision, and the overarching goal is to identify obstacles in the value loop. So I was watching the bees for a couple of days and found that they started preferring an abundant balcony garden and the nearby chestnut trees to get their food. So the resource the bees usually give to the garden is a direct resource, the pollen, the pollination services. So long-term, if nothing changes, this could develop into a stakeholder resource brick because a key stakeholder does not provide the resource needed for the physical components of the organization to continue, which is the plants. An example for a resource translation gap would be that the garden receives a lot of wood as an in-kind donation, but does not need to build anything out of it. So this physical resource cannot be translated back into the organization. So that would be a gap. There can also be a gap between the socio-physical setup of the organization and the values created. From Laurie's perspective, if the garden wants to create beauty, the team, the social, clearly does not take care of the garden, the physical, in an appropriate manner to create the value of beauty. Instead, she sees weeds. So having done a couple of analyses with different values, you probably wonder what to do about those externalities and how to deal with bricks and gaps. We will now look at the strategies. There are two main strategies. So this model provides meta-level strategies, not specific ones, because every organization is different. The following strategies thus help you target your actions to your individual case. Strategy 1 is about externalities. Positive externalities should be internalized. Internalizing means that the positive value created is channeled in such a manner to stakeholders who are able to give useful resources to the organization, that the organization gets something in return for that value. So the mental health benefits, for example, could be internalized by starting a cooperation with a health insurance who gives financial resources back to the organization for providing mental health benefits. Negative externalities should be minimized or removed. The disturbance through noise, for example, can be minimized by having events during daytime instead and talking to the neighbors, also to gain personal sympathy. Strategy 2 is about bricks and gaps. What you do is to build bridges here. What to do about the brick with the bees? It has to be bridged. That is the meta-level strategy. Concretely, at this case, I have two ideas. One would be to expand the variety of flowering plants growing in the garden, and maybe that would also help achieve the goal of making Laurie perceive beauty. And two, how about introducing another bee colony? One of the neighbors is said to be a hobby beekeeper. Maybe that would even be a way to include him in a nice way. The resource translation gap also needs to be bridged. The wood could be sold, and the revenue can be used to invest in seeds for bee-friendly flowers, for example. And lastly, how do we change what Laurie sees in the garden? What is the bridge here? If the garden wants to keep producing ecological value, some weeds are inescapable. Plus, a major part of funding is received for the ecological value, so the garden certainly does not want to cut down on that. We already mentioned planting more or different flowers. That might help. But it also seems like the channel that transports the value to Laurie, the how in the value triangle, is not effective in transporting beauty. She perceives the weeds when she passes by occasionally. Seeing the beauty in this garden also has to do with understanding the ecosystem it represents. So I have the idea that Anne, the founder, could invite Laurie to come in the garden by sending her a bouquet of wildflowers to her house and explaining the garden setup to her. Let's see whether that works. We have now covered the whole model. And now I would like to talk about how these 4 steps can be applied in your urban food initiative. First, and evidently for analysis and strategizing to support the continuity and growth of your initiative, as we have seen in the example, through value loop analyses and through division development. But you can also put more emphasis on identifying stakeholders through a stakeholder analysis, following the definition of stakeholders as any human and non-human actor or entity that is impacting or impacted by your organization. The diamond model can also be used to support multi-stakeholder dialogues. As we have seen, perspectives on the values created by urban food initiatives differ quite a bit. So sitting together at a table and talking about the complex of values visually represented by the diamond helps see and understand each other's perspective without perceiving them as contradictions. Rather, the diamond metaphor implies that every perspective is valuable, and without the range of perspectives, the diamond would literally be one-sided or not even exist. So it can support constructive stakeholder conversations. Together with many stakeholders or simply with your team, you can also use the diamond for developing a vision for your future and strategies of how to get there. And through the systematic methodology, remember the tables from step 1 and 2, and the visual representation, the diamond model can also be used as a monitoring tool. If you go out and interview your stakeholders about the values they get from your initiative, you can also use the model for impact reporting. So there's really a wide range of applications for this tool. If you want to apply it, we also have a couple of additional resources for you and support you in that. On the Marketplace website that has been mentioned before by Alexandra and Ina, you can download the Diamond Model User Guide. It walks you through all the 4 steps and contains also a detailed case example. You can also download the tables and some templates for diamonds and value loop analyses. And if you're curious about the theoretical background and the typology of urban food initiatives we have developed, you have a kind of a look at this document here. We will also provide all links in the chat. And this is us, the business consulting team. You have already met Alexandra, and we are here to support you via the EdisonNet Marketplace, where we offer one-on-one consulting services for initiatives in person or online, and that is for free. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You can see here the email address as well. Yeah, to close with, I would like to thank you for your interest, and especially I would like to extend a big thanks to all our partners, all the initiatives who have developed with us this diamond model over the last 3 years. That was really, to me personally, a gratifying process, and I hope for it to be useful in the future as well.